Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be talking about the Modern Conflict event that is in Enlisted. I played a bunch of games yesterday, and after playing a ton of them, I don't feel like I need to play any more. I feel like I've kind of got my fill of the event and obviously what is going on. So I'm going to give some thoughts out about the ideas and also about the things shown and generally what we may see in the future. One of the things as well is if you haven't tried this event, I highly recommend it. Even if you haven't got Enlisted downloaded, this gives a little bit of more of a modern take on the gameplay. And I know after looking at a bunch of other FPSs which focus on more modern warfare, hopefully more people will be interested in this which may not have been interested in Enlisted before. You can also get some rewards for playing the event. So 1 silver order for just playing one battle, and 1 silver order for getting 3 wins. So I was able to get some pretty nice stuff in this event, and you can too when it comes to just playing it and giving it a go. So what is Modern Conflict? Well, Modern Conflict as an event is a pretty simple one. It takes some ideas that we've seen from other games that have been produced and by Guardian and even developed by Darkflow Software in the form of Cuisine Royale, or Crusade for WAD, how it's called nowadays for some reason, and put them into Enlisted, giving it kind of a little bit of a fresh take and also an idea of what may come in the future. When it comes to events like these, I've seen it in many other games, whether it be April Fool's events or whether it be just general events, and they come kind of out of the blue, and it is obviously a way of trying to test if the interest is there for an event like this and to see how many people talk about it when it comes to social media, how many new eyes it brings onto, the game itself. It's something that is close to how the game functions, but adds a new layer onto it, so therefore people can come along and may find it interesting, whereas before they might not have. And in this case, let's say you really like Enlisted mechanically and it seems to work very well, but maybe the World War II era doesn't interest you. Maybe you prefer something like Vietnam, maybe you prefer more modern stuff, that we've seen from other games. Well, this would be the perfect opportunity to be able to gauge those people's interests. So when we have a look at events like this, they're designed for 2 things. The first one, as I said, is to gauge interest in a certain area of history to see if it is worth going forward in development-wise for the company itself. And the second one is capitalizing on what is going on right now. If you haven't realized, obviously, with some releases of certain games like Battlefield 2042 and also even the new COD, which has gone back to the World War II era, but Warzone is also very popular right now. And also the World War III game, which I believe is in beta right now. There's a lot of modern stuff running around in the main FPS areas. So with Enlisted kind of showing this, especially around the release of Battlefield 2042, maybe the idea is to get some of those players who have played those areas to come over and be like, oh, this looks kind of interesting, let's give this a go and see what mechanics are available for it and see what is going on. Obviously, Enlisted does this really well since the opportunity cost of it is very low because it's a free-to-play game. And at the same time, if you want to play the Modern Conflict mode, you do have to play a few games beforehand, so about 1 to 5 games before you're allowed to get access to the event if you haven't played it, in the past. So that would be a way of getting people into matches, playing the game normally instead of just playing the Modern Conflict area and leaving. So it gives new players a taste of what the game is about and then the Modern Conflict stuff and makes them think, should they stick around or not? So generally what you're seeing here is not just something to gauge interest, but also something to maybe interest some new players into the game and then stick around, hoping that eventually we'll get the Modern Conflict stuff. And put it like this, when it comes to this Modern Conflict little area of Enlisted, if the game sticks around for many years, which I think it will, since it's already been in development for about 3 or 4 years at this point, and also they have the 4 major campaigns released, now they're just building on top of them and have been for the last few months, getting the core mechanics of the game still sorted out. After that, Then the expansion comes. And the expansion is either going to be in technology or it's going to be in more campaigns in other theaters. And the question is, how is the game going to handle this? There's already been many talks about the problems with copy-paste weaponry and also copy-paste individuals. So the problem right now in the 4 campaigns is what you have is you have the Axis side, which mainly uses German weapons. When it comes to Tunisia, it's slightly different because you have a few Italian weapons, but generally the Italian weapons are worse than the German ones, so you don't want to use them. So they're just kind of there as a stumbling block to get to the German weapons which are available. So what ends up happening is this awful situation where if you keep having those types of campaigns which keep having the same armies on one of the sides, then people are going to get sick of it, and therefore they're not going to play whatever new campaign on that side because they've already played it before. And that's what we're seeing with Tunisia. If you haven't played Tunisia, I do recommend it, but understand right now on the Allied side or the British side, it is much more fun to play just because you have more unique stuff, and also at the same time you also have some, you're not using the same weaponry you've used before in other campaigns. So there really is a little bit of an issue with Enlisted when it comes to switching through campaigns as a experienced player. As a player, if you just pick one campaign and go for it, then it isn't too much of an issue because you don't have that problem with crossovers. And then when you decide to actually move to another campaign, you will have that problem, but maybe it might be slightly better for you because you are more experienced with that campaign itself. The problem is, though, once it becomes a 3rd campaign and a 4th campaign, it gets very tiring very quickly. So with the modern conflict stuff, this is very different to all of those ideas. Completely different combatants, completely different weapons, completely different vehicles. So therefore, this would be completely different from those other campaigns. No copycat stuff at all. And therefore, it would be very fresh and very new for individuals who wanted to work on this stuff. So for me, when I look at the modern conflict, it's kind of an eye into what Enlisted will become eventually in about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years' time. Right now, this modern conflict event is a very simple one. I don't think it took too much time to develop. When it comes to the T-80U and the M1A1HC, these vehicles are already in War Thunder. Their models are very odd when it comes to the game of Enlisted. The only thing I suppose they had to model was the APFS-DS, which is new compared to other vehicles. And then also when you have a look at the guns that the majority of the guns that were used in this, most of them you can find in like other games like Crusade Fawad, and other ones were actually leaked a while ago for Enlisted when it came to a few of the ArtStation stuff. Like some of the designers of these things sometimes put the weapons up before they're actually released. So it was pretty obvious that they were planning on doing stuff like this. And then when it comes to the actual soldiers themselves, once again, they just put body armor on them and also helmets. So they didn't really change them too much. The only massive difference between this and the standard game modes of Enlisted is that some of the troops were really fast, like ridiculously fast, like Sonic the Hedgehog. And I feel like that's maybe testing out if people want quicker gameplay instead of, what we have before in Enlisted, which is still pretty fast if you get all the perks properly done and then also get the spawn beacons up and everything. But it's not as quick as it was in Modern Conflict, where people were literally running around at the speed of light. So it's basically a test of a bunch of different ideas, but also I don't think it took too much time to put together. And this means that the development time pushing into other areas of the game, the stuff that they're working on right now when it comes to balancing and when it comes to new content, I don't think it takes too much of a hit for this event going on. I really don't think it took a lot of time to put this together, and because of it, they can now gauge interest on it and see if it's worth going forward with, just like how War Thunder did with their April Fool's event ages ago, and just like many other companies do when they put new ideas out there for weekend events. It's a great way of gauging what's going on. And yes, was it polished? No, it isn't. You know, there are a few issues when it comes to the guns, when it comes to the size of them, when it comes to the peripheral vision of them, when it comes to the reloads and also some of the recoils. Of course, they're not all there. Also, the Barrett, for some reason, counting as a bolt action is kind of funny. But the fact is, the game mode itself is very similar to what we already see in the normal game. It just has access to a few more bells and whistles, and these bells and whistles are designed to get people interested and get people hyped for what we could see in the future. And now, because of this event, you know what's going to happen? People are going to constantly talk about it. It's going to be one of those things that's brought up in a year or two, and people go, do you remember that? I wonder what's happening with that. Did they do anything with that? What's going on? And you know it's coming. You know it's going to happen because you've probably seen it before in other games. And I'm hoping that it will eventually come. Once they've exhausted the World War II stuff, you know, obviously we have all the Pacific campaign stuff. I'm sure they're going to do something around that. Hopefully they expand on the ideas that we've seen out of the 4 campaigns, but hopefully they don't go too far with it, with extra campaigns. I'd rather just see them mold into the 4 campaigns. Once they've done all that stuff, this is inevitable. You know, the game has to constantly grow. The game has to constantly be updated, just like other games as a service are. Otherwise, it becomes stale, people get bored, and stop playing it. That's why events are very important, and that's why gauging interest on future ideas is important as well. And that's exactly what this event is doing. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Professor X 1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, BRFC 15, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, and then Kyle Kin, Bareen, Lafouche, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.